The genre of anime has many aspects. Much like normal live action films, there's plenty of categories to keep those who prefer them entertained. Today's tale lands in the category of fun, wholesome, and if there is one, the development of how we carry ourselves in everyday life. Kiki is a young witch trying to find herself, moves to a seaside town accompanied by her cat Jiji with the plan to abide her village's tradition for witches in training. After accomplishing the use of her broomstick, she finds a lucrative venture in the form of a courier service and soon becomes a great asset to the local community. Her insecurities become her real life troubles as she suddenly loses her abilities as a witch. Can she overcome the self doubt within? Today, we get a fun lesson in self growth. And today we do a discussion of sorts on the 1989 classic from Studio Ghibli, Kiki's Delivery Service. This is a Comic Talkers production, and you are listening to a, without even thinking about it, I used to be able to fly. Now I'm trying to look inside myself and find out how I did it. Edition of Just Four Flicks. What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Patty B. With me, as always, is Mr. B Dog, Mr. Brandon. How you doing this morning?
Well, after that intro, I'm doing fantastic.
Flying high
Oh man.
on a broomstick.
With us today, you know him as my co-host over on the Con Talkers and Anime Talkers podcast. Please welcome back to the podcast, Ty. Ty, how are you doing?
Having a good time with that intro.
Yeah. Man,
You guys will never know.
in the middle, what was it? In the middle of that, I'm gonna be like 5 minutes late.
Stop, you're gonna make me start laughing. Please don't.
Why is it that the wholesome stuff is what gets you, man? Like you even do that with the Mickey Mouse. You do that with
Oh boy.
but fans, we're gonna be covering or talking about Kiki's Delivery Service. Now, this movie, which is pretty unique, because and Ty, you can kind of probably elaborate on a little bit more than we can too at point that when Studio Ghibli started coming out with films, those films did not come to us for years after. So Kiki's Delivery Service was released in 1989. They didn't come to the States till about 1998 time frame. With the new cast or with the new dub cast, everything. Spirit Away, which we've talked about before, was released in 2001 and didn't come to us till about 2003. So I know it's because like they work with dubbing the movie and stuff like that for audiences to understand. But what's your take on that, Ty? Like with having like near a 10-year difference from when the movie first originally came out to Kiki being released in the United States.
Well, I'm glad they're working it faster now. You know what I mean?
Well, they do that with Godzilla -1 as well. It was pretty much released literally not even months after.
Yeah, if you look at the anime, how it is now, it takes us like a couple days for the dub to get released. So like, I'm glad they don't take that long again. Imagine like there are so many anime movies I want to watch, but there's not even a release it because there's no dub or translation for it. So yeah, just having that huge gap, now that it works here, it's like just like either a couple months or a couple weeks or a couple days. So yeah, I'm glad the transition for that is much faster work now.
Yeah. What about you, Pat? What's your take on that for this one, especially being such a big time gap?
I mean, I'd never seen. So typically, and you're talking about like just the voicing over of it, correct?
So the
Like
dubbing.
them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, because the animation and all that stuff was done in '89, right?
Yeah.
So in that time, I mean, everyone was just able to interpret the story through that culture, correct? I mean, through the Japanese dub or the Japanese version. But I think, I mean, obviously, I never watched the original version, so to speak. I grew up watching the English version, so I would go ahead and say just from my perspective and not really growing up on anime in general, I do like I like how it is just because the cast that they were able to get involved in this with the roles and everything, I think it does interpret the story, I think, better to a majority of the American audience and people that don't speak Japanese and stuff like that. Um, Especially like, with actors, with having Kirsten Dunst as Kiki and having Gigi being played by Phil Hartman, Jean Garoppolo being in it, Debbie Reynolds being in it, the list goes on. You guys would probably have a different perspective on that, I think, just because you both grew up watching anime. I mean, there's probably a lot of different movie where this probably isn't the only movie or anime movie that was had a gap like that, right?
Well,
Where it was made and then
I know Totoro was for a while too, and I think Grave of the Fireflies was the same way.
what
So
about Akira? Did they have like
Kira
Akira was
2001, I think, or it was like 2000, 1999, or 2001 time. So anywhere from 1999 to 2001, that was dubbed.
but that was also made in like 88, wasn't it?
So there was a huge difference from that.
Yeah.
I think the difference too, you got to remember though, is Ghibli did have a deal with Disney to distribute it out in our neck of the woods more. So for that, but that wasn't until later on. That wasn't until about the late 90s when that actually happened. Because, like I said, then Totoro came out, and then we had that Spirited Away came out, which we talked about John Lasseter being the one that was in control of the
Mhm.
dubbing and everything like that. And if anybody, like we said, if you guys don't know, John Lasseter is the one that created Toy Story, and he was in charge of the Spirited Away movie when it was coming to the United States. That's why I say it's not the first time, but the difference is that Kira was outside Ghibli as well, so maybe that's why it took so long to do it. Like, but it's like, Pat, to answer your question, more recently it's more like when they dub it, it's pretty quick. It's if it's a movie, we probably get in about 6 months to about a year time.
Yep.
If it's shows, usually it's weeks. So after the initial episode comes out in subtitles, it'll come out about maybe 4 or 5 weeks with dubbed, if
Mm,
not literally the next week.
it's
Depending.
like less, like
Yeah.
less. It depends on like how popular it is. Like I think Solo Leveling Up had a little bit of distance between the releasing,
Yeah.
but there are like other anime where it will like release a few days after.
Right. What do you guys think budget wise this film is before we go into our discussions?
Um,
It is yen, so I'll convert it to you once you kind of got an idea.
so you want me to say we have to say yen first, and
Oh, well, you can rough it up to US dollar too, and I'll let you know if it's right or wrong or close to
Ty, what do you think? You go first, Ty.
300 million.
Come
it.
on,
Hey, it's an animated movie, you know? You gotta think about
You're
it.
like try like 295,000 or 295 million less than that.
295. So listen, it's too early in the morning, right? I ain't trying to do math in my head.
Pat, what would you say before I give out the answer?
Well, I can do math, so that's probably like 5 million.
$5,571,480 converted.
I was
Yen
close.
wise, it was 800 million.
See, I was close. I was in a million.
You were in the millions. Let's give it up for Ty, man.
Now, there's a difference. Opening weekend in the US and Canada was 352,556. It grossed overall in those two countries 1,004,057. Gross worldwide was $10,403,278 US. That's what I said. For what it was, I actually don't like. I don't think this is the biggest one they've put out. I think Spirit Away still holds that record, but again, I know the Boy and the Heron got close too. So
Yeah.
that's what I said. Like, but going into what we liked and disliked, let's start with Ty. Ty, what did you like about this film?
I mean, it's a pretty chill movie. Like, you could tell it's definitely a family movie. You know, there's not a lot of conflict in the movie, like struggle. It's just like pretty much just watching her trying to discover what she can do, and then like just a little bit at the end where they have to like make something up where she loses her power. You know, a little downfall. Um, you get hints a little jealousy when she finds out the boy she talked to, has another friend girl, that's when she starts to like lose her power. But I feel like that's just a way for them to like throw in a little conflict, so the movie can have like a little ups and downs. There's not really a lot of things you can hate about the movie because it's like a cheerful movie.
Yeah.
It's it, it's a lot of cheerful. This is nothing you can be like, oh yeah, I hate how happy this movie is. There's like not really anything you can say bad about it.
Yeah, no, and like you were saying with the con, like just the cons have, like I couldn't even find a con for myself. I mean, this was one of the first anime movies I grew up on. I mean, this is kind of why part of the reason why me and B Dog decided to go ahead and tackle this movie. But I mean, yeah, there's definitely way more pros if there is any cons. No, like the intro scene is one of my favorites, like that whole 10-minute sequence. But yeah, no, that intro of her flying in that song, by the way, that song is awesome. I don't know what the song is, but
You can Google it later.
I'm actually gonna look it up right now. But
That is showing his side of not watching a lot of anime and him being challenged this month. I tell
yeah,
you.
I think it's called A Town with an Ocean View. I'm gonna go ahead and say that's the one. That's the title of the song.
Well,
Watch.
I can't
It's
I
gonna be
can't
like they
fact
messed
check
up.
you, so I
Yeah.
can't.
No, that isn't, but that is actually one of the main titles of the movie. But no, like the her, getting the opportunity to grow or not grow, but like go and
Discover
be a
herself.
witch, discover herself, be a witch, and learn witchcraft and everything. I love when her family sends her off on that, and just that whole intro of her just flying, the credits rolling. Like that's, I don't know, it's pretty cool, and I think that's kind of just from right there. I think that part alone sets the tone of what the movie is going to be for the next hour and 40 minutes, or hour and at that point hour and 30 or whatever. But yeah, man. I mean, there's a lot of good things. What do you think about the artwork in this? As opposed to some other stuff he's done. I know it's probably not as elaborate as like, Spirited Away, but you mean Spirited Away and Kiki's Delivery Service are also like what, a 10-year difference?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like you, like mind you, and that was some of the trivia points I had here. Was there was 462 colors that was used in this film alone,
Oh
and
wow.
that 67,317 traditional cells were used in this movie.
Jesus.
Because, like I talked about with Spirited Away, having that moment where you're seeing him, like you said, he didn't have a script for the film. He didn't have any of that. He just started making the storyboard. That's how he made a script. Like it's really unique to see how different people take on, and especially Miyazaki, which Miyazaki we know can get pretty elaborate with his films. That's why I said, like, to hear too, he was not supposed to be the original director for this film.
Mhm.
Also shocks me. It was Nobuyuki Ishiki. That was originally the one that was supposed to be. That was written by him, and then he was scheduled to direct it. And
Oh,
then
okay.
Miyazaki was actually unsatisfied with the script, and he left the project.
He was like, F this, I'm out.
Yeah. So,
Me done.
but going back to your artwork, like it is. I agree. It's not like to me like how I look at Mononoke and think, "Wow, the artwork is so incredible," or something like Spirit Away, where it's weird, but that's what makes it so interesting. But Kiki's Delivery Service, I think it took on a different challenge too, because I think this is one of the only movies that you really see that's not really focused like in Japan setting. This was more in like a German kind of setting, in a Swedish kind of setting. And because they even stated that that's actually where they went and looked and started getting ideas for the film was Sweden and going in the city, because even the writing on the buildings and stuff, that's not Japanese, that is German. That is like that tone, the way it's written and stuff. It's like, yeah, that's not English, and I'm glad they didn't do that for us. And I'm glad it kind of kept it authentic throughout the film.
Mhm.
It's something Miyazaki I don't think has done a lot of, but to have that moment where he's actually doing stuff like that is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I this what I think we talked about it off the air, but like I like how this movie doesn't involve as much thinking to it as opposed to a lot of his other movies. Like Mononoke is a pretty deep movie. Spirited Away is a pretty deep movie. Howl's Moving Castle.
They
This
with
movie,
Fireflies.
Great with Fireflies, yes, yeah. So I mean, it's just this, and I think Ty was saying just a second ago too. It's more family oriented, right? I mean, this movie is easily a film that you can watch with your kids if you guys. I know you guys don't have kids, but me myself and as a dad, I can tell you.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
No, I can tell you as just from experience. I know my son loves all the Ghibli movies. But he does like this movie in particular too. So yeah, I don't know what our next talk. Sorry, if we can
Well, no,
edit
no,
that
no.
part.
Yeah. Going back to what Brandon said about like comparing the animation for this one and like Princess Mononoke, like you could pretty much tell the tone of the movie
Yeah.
by the artwork, you know. You could
Right.
tell Princess Mononoke is gonna be like kind of like a serious thing, a tone, while this one is like okay, it's kind of friendly. Bam, it's kids friendly. You
Right.
know, like
Mhm.
my neighbor Totoro. You know, you could tell by looking at the animation, it's like, okay, this is for kids, definitely. Like
Well, and
imagine,
I think in Kiki's there's probably a lot more warm colors, right? A
yeah,
lot more
yeah.
of inviting colors
Well,
that
like, and that's a good point to bring up because, like, when you really look at Mononoke, it's more grim. The dark
sharp.
colors,
Yeah.
thing like that. The fire is pretty potent through the film when you see it. You know, even the scene, like the only vibrant colors you see in Mononoke are like the forest spirits and like everything. Those are really like the only bright colors you see through that film. And then when once the forest, I can't remember the name, like the guardian or the guard of the forest or whatever it was,
Yeah, yeah.
when his heads get shot off, it turns grim, it turns dark again, it turns all this into stuff. So yeah, the color speaks a lot of volumes.
Mhm.
And that's why I said, like, Kiki, you could tell, it's like you said, like even House Moving Castle and Castle in the Sky are bright colors when you really look at it. It's either amazing color sets and everything. Even the Boy and the Heron was pretty bright colors. But and Ghibli does, or Studio Ghibli really does well with the colors theme and knowing what you're watching. And I agree with that term. Like I think, like, that's why I told you guys after I watched Kiki, I was like, I gotta go watch something dark again. And I put on Princess Mononoke because I was like, I gotta do something. I can't watch this over and over again. So I
You
said
just sound like a sad guy. You like, oh man, that was such a good movie, happy ending. I need to watch something was sad.
that. But it was, that's why I said it was, that's why, well, you know me enough, Ty. You know me for over 10 years. That's the whole point. That's I prefer
Sad. No, I'm
film.
joking.
I know. Brooding sadness. Why do you think I like the Lego movie so much? Because they make Batman dark in that film. Like it's like sadness, loneliness. It's like, yeah. Not the point, but no, like this film, I haven't seen this movie since I was like 5, 6 years old. So watching it again, it was,
Really?
I was like, okay, this is a little culture shock for me. I was
Yeah.
like okay. And it's not it's a bad movie. It's just not my, and again, I think Ty brought it up perfectly. You can tell which movies are for kids and what movies aren't. And that this one was more intended for kids. Like, and at that time too, really the only dark movie they did at that point was Grave of the Fireflies, and that was even before Studio Ghibli was known as Studio Ghibli. The only other ones they've done since during that time frame were more kid friendly. So they had like Totoro, they had Kiki, they had a couple other ones like that. Like they didn't really, to me at least, and Ty, maybe you can tell me yes or no. They really didn't turn a dark turn until you really get to Mononoke, other than what they had with Grave of the Fireflies,
Yeah, probably.
because most of them were more kid friendly and stuff like
Yeah. I think you could tell the audience that they're trying to target,
that.
is
Yeah.
more for like kids and I guess teens.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Like it's Kiki is one of the scenes I really did enjoy was the first scene where you see her take off and
Yeah.
see like how having that, like the how she's just like how it's like levitating and it's like her whole body is like all getting like all tensed up and stuff. I thought that's pretty unique. But then that's what you see in other movies of his that they kind of have the same thing because they do that in Unspirited Away. They did that in a couple other things where you have that tense up scene when Chichiro sees the slime god or what is thought to be a slime god, and then it turns into a river spirit. To have those moments, it's pretty unique to see that he uses some of those moments and uses it for other films, and it works perfectly.
I think we should talk about the cast in this, shouldn't we?
Yeah, like you have Kristen Dunst, you have Phil Hartman, you have Matthew Lawrence,
Yeah. Debbie Reynolds.
Reynolds. Those are like your big draws. And the sad thing is about this is that in the middle of this film or the dubbing of this was really like Phil Hartman's really like kind of one of his last films.
Yeah.
And they were not finished with his dubbing yet when he passed away. And like you brought up, Pat, and I forgot all about this. This is back-to-back movies with Kristen Dunst and
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too. I mean, think about timing because I think this movie and Small Soldiers, I mean, they're the dubbing I think was done in 97 for this movie. Which I believe Small Soldiers was being filmed around this time because it came out in like I think
it came in 98 too.
it came out in June of 98, I think, or like summer of 98. So, and I believe he passed away in May of 98, if I'm not, I don't have it right in front of me, but I'm pretty
it
sure.
was right before Small Soldiers.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up on Phil Hartman, and I think that's why I love this movie so much, is because I loved his time on SNL. I know he was during some of the best years of SNL, in my
He was the
opinion.
best Bill Clinton we got.
That whole McDonald's skit was so good.
Or even he's in part of the iconic skit down by the river. He's the dad in that.
Yeah, he's the dad. Yeah. Well, so and then I loved another movie I grew up of his is House Guest with Sinbad.
Oh, see, I was thinking Jingle All the Way because he's in Jingle All the Way.
No, I've actually only maybe seen that movie once.
Oh yeah, dude. Phil Hartman plays a perfect evil villain, like evil neighbor. Like
oh no, I don't blame him. I mean, he's kind of a he's he's kind of an ass
like
in
good, but he was a really nice person when you've listened
oh
to
yeah.
stuff. He was like one of the nicest guys you'd ever meet.
Yeah.
And it just that's why I said like him. It was sad when I was reading on that because I was like, I didn't know that at that time. Like it wasn't too long ago that I actually realized how Phil Hartman passed. And
Oh, you didn't realize. Oh, okay.
I never
I didn't
realized.
know either.
But
you guys told me.
You told me, Pat, and I was like, I didn't know that. Like I
Oh,
knew he
okay.
was, but I didn't know it was by that cause.
Yeah, and he died, and like I said, he died like he was young. I think he was only like 50, like maybe in like late 40s, like
That's what I was
49
thinking. I was thinking it was like late 40s. Yeah.
48 or 49. Yeah, he was young when yeah, so it's a shame. And it's like it's one of those things with celebrities. It's like there's so much he could you imagine the stuff he would have been involved in? Had that tragedy not happened and he was able to do other things. I think the sky's the limit, especially for his voice acting. He had such a great voice.
Well, like even for SNL fans, it wasn't too far away too when Chris Farley passed either.
Yeah, within 6 months.
Yeah, that's why I said like when you really think about what some of that whole cast during that time frame could have done, because you get big name people that come from that cast. You had Mike Myers come from that cast. You had Adam
David Spade.
Yeah, and David Spade. You have iconic actors that you know and love today.
And Meadows is another one too.
Exactly. That's why I said it's just surprising to really see how many actors came from that cold cast with Phil Hartman and Chris Farley, and now look where they're at now.
I've seen parts of it, but have you ever seen that sitcom with Phil Hartman, the News Radio?
Yes, I have. I've
young Joe Rogan is in it, like pre-Fear Factor days.
Yeah.
A couple of other people are in it. I think Andy Dick's in it as well.
Yeah, that's what I said, like. But going back to Kiki, like just to have, it's a good story about how Kiki learns to be her own person in the long run. And Ghibli knows how to work that so well because it's not the only time they've done it. They've done it with Spirit Away later on.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
Like, they've done stories like this, but it's more. I think the difference is that For Kiki, she wants this. For Chihiro, she was kind of forced into it. When you really think about it, Chihiro has that moment where she is, I hate to say it this way, but I'm going to say it, kind of like an entitled brat. She is all what she wants, everything like that. And then she has a culture shock when her parents are taken away from her. And then now she has to learn how to save them and become a woman over time. When you have this movie, Kiki wants to do this. Kiki wants to go out and do her own thing and be her own person. But in the long run, she still struggles. And I think this is more down to earth compared to when you get Spirited Away. Spirited Away is more of a fantasy-based story, everything like that. This is more, yeah, she's a witch, but anybody can relate to her. I think that's one of the big differences.
There's a perfect blend of fantasy and realism in Kiki. As opposed to Spirited Away, which is obviously, I mean, it's kind of in the title. It's more spiritual, like it's spirited away, right?
Right.
It's a little more in depth when it comes to that kind of thing, but yeah.
I want to bring up even the bakery. Like, I think the bakery is probably one of my favorite scenes. It has one of my favorite scenes that made me laugh so hard in the film. And it's probably the littlest scene, but it makes me laugh every time. Is when you see the husband, when he looks down and sees Jiji at the door, and he's like, and then he goes over to the other side and he like flips the little bakery thing and he puts it on the thing on the counter and he just looks at Jiji and it like raises up his eyebrows, and I'm saying, like, trying to show off to a cat or something. Like, the way he was doing, because like Gigi's like, oh, it's like, shut up. This is not like, and then he sits there and he winks at him. He's like he's all creeped out now. It's like, what the hell is this? Like, to have that moment, just that cook alone, the husband, just makes me laugh every time I see it. Every time he comes on, it brings you a good nature feeling. Like it's I think him and Osono really gave you that feeling of, this is now more down to earth situation. Like, we're here to help you. We're here to do this, but you're going to still have responsibilities here. You're going to help man the story. You're going to help do all this. Osono, when she comes in, I think that's where I really enjoyed it more. Like, it took me a little bit to get into the movie. Like, how Kiki comes into town. Oh yeah, and then it causes almost a big wreck to happen, and then she, like, even
The whole cop coming after her, and then I think that's when we see the boy interest or whatever of the movie, or they
Yeah.
don't really allude to it much, but um that's when he kind of gets her out of a jam with a thief, right? One line I like from that whole sequence was the group of the antagonist, like, group of friends in the neighborhood.
yeah,
They're like, maybe you could sweep her off her feet with that broom.
Tumbo.
Combo. Yeah.
Like, dude, did you realize that was Matthew Lawrence the whole time in that? Because I did not.
I
Like,
did not.
yeah, Matthew Lawrence. Let me put it this way, Ty, because I know you know movies more
Yeah,
than it.
Scream. Yeah, Scream.
No, Mrs.
I'm
Doubtfire.
thinking of Matthew
Oh,
Lillard.
oh man, yeah.
Matthew Lillard is the son of Robin Williams in Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah,
Matthew
Matthew Lillard
Lawrence might
and all that.
Matthew
okay.
Lawrence actually might
Matthew
be
Lawrence.
in,
My
he
apologies.
might be in Mononoke too, I think.
I couldn't tell you that right off the top of my head.
I'm gonna look that up while you guys are talking,
But
but I'm pretty sure I've seen that.
but like Matthew Lawrence, and mind you, the Lawrence brothers are big in Hollywood. Like, when you really think about it, they are big people in Hollywood. They're trio brothers. One of them didn't go big, but Matthew and Joey were the two that kind of stayed in Hollywood. But I didn't realize. I thought it was what's his face from Boy Meets World. I know both of them were in Boy
Which
Meets
one?
World. Well, the brother, the Will Fredette, the one
Okay,
that
okay.
does Batman
Yeah,
Beyond and all that.
okay, okay. You thought that was him?
I thought that was him. But
Oh,
when I said Boy Meets World, I'm saying, like, well, Matthew Lawrence was also in Boy Meets World as his friend,
yeah.
or Eric's friend. That's why I said it's so they sound so similar at points that it's hard for me to tell who's who. Like Will Fredette, especially like how Will Fredette does Batman Beyond. you wouldn't think that was him. The way he talks and everything, I didn't know that was him for a long time. But like him and Matthew Lawrence at points talk so similar that I thought that was him. But like even Debbie Reynolds, and by far that was probably I will still put it out there. I think that was one of the biggest actresses that they had for this movie. Like
Can you
Kristen
believe?
Dunst saw it coming. Like
Wait, I'm just thinking about it. Talk about timing on here. Debbie Reynolds is probably in the middle of shooting Halloween Town and also voicing for this movie. I just clicked because Halloween Town is also released in 98. So that had to be filmed in probably 97, I would imagine.
that's why I said, like, just to really think about it. Well, you got to remember, Disney would use anybody and everybody they had underneath their payroll already just to spend a little
Oh,
bit less money.
it's crazy to think. It's crazy to think about timing, and it's just crazy to think about like the impact on these movies and what they have today. For, at least for us and people our age and that generation and everything. I mean, I love Halloween Town. I still my son loves that movie, and I'm so happy he does because it's like it's something that I can easily remember when I was a kid and enjoying watching that movie and how much it like became one of my, traditions as a Halloween movie to watch, So
Debbie Reynolds alone is an acting icon. Like, when you
no,
really,
no, I know. And I'm just basing off of, how as millennials or as this sounds like a millennial thing to say, but it's like that's my main thing I know Debbie Reynolds from is Halloween Town. So
I know her from Singing in the Rain because that's what I grew up with. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. Isn't I think
that was her
she,
first movie ever.
she's in a cameo in what's it called? Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Yes. Yes, she is. That one, that's why I said that one. But that's why I said, like, her and Matthew Lawrence were already under Disney's payroll when you really think about it. Even the woman who voices Osano is the main voice you hear when you think of Daisy Duck, when you listen to cartoons and stuff. That's her. When you listen to how she laughs and stuff, that's exactly who I thought. I was like, that's Daisy Duck. Like,
Yeah.
but like the two that I feel they had to pay something for was Dunst and Hartman, because Hartman was never really under Disney's payroll, as what I know.
Yeah.
That wasn't either. So, and
She was right off the heels of Jumanji and Interview with the Vampire.
yeah, I forget she's in that movie, but
Yeah,
that's
that's like one of mine. That's a guilty pleasure of mine too.
yeah, I don't care for Tom Cruise. You know that. That's probably why I forgot all about it. But let me tell you the other part I really like or really laughed at. Okay, the blimp scene when the blimp's on the or when it starts to go upside down. They're watching on TV, and you have that lady with Madam. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
oh, it's getting to the good part. I'm like, what the fuck? And she's sitting there smiling at the screen the whole time. It's like there's a disaster going on in town, and the best you can say is, "Oh, it's just getting to the good part." It's like, dude,
She's
what the fuck's
she's
wrong?
oh, she thought that was a movie.
The was like, no, that's nothing to play with. It's like you could see Madam sitting there just like Kiki's like all enthralled, and they're all like, "Oh, it's getting to the good part." It's like, shut up! Like that's nothing funny. Like
It's kind of funny.
it
Think
made me
about it.
laugh because it was just kind of an awkward scene to have. But I felt like that might be Disney's fault too. That makes sense because they said Disney changed a lot of the lines in this film without Ghibli knowing.
Do you know them?
They were responsible and being like they changed a lot of lines, knowing that it probably wouldn't be accurate to what they were saying, but they were trying to get the same point across. Which we know that from animes too. They do that at points, depending on the anime and everything. But I don't know. That's why I said like there wasn't a lot of rights about it about the movie. Is it one I'd sit there and watch over and over again? Not really. But Ty, let's go to you. Like, what are parts that you enjoyed and parts you didn't enjoy?
Well, like I said, it's really hard to not like find stuff like to hate. But I really like the bike scene because that's when her and her guy friend like connects a little bit. Like you can see her enjoying herself until it gets to the end. That's when like they whole we got to have a conflict of her like losing her power and stuff.
Yeah.
After that scene. But yeah, man, like. I this is one of those movies I'll probably just like put in the background and do something else, you know.
Yeah.
I'll listen to, that's fine, but like to like sit to actually watch, I probably wouldn't do it again, but like, you know, I kind of agree with Brandon. It's like not one of those high tier Ghibli's film where like, oh yeah, like straight away, like when that shit's on, you gotta
You're
watch it.
enthralled quick. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
enthralled really quickly.
it's it's just too like family friendly, I guess. You know, there's nothing to like really pay attention about. It just, you know, once you know
I was
about
like, give me death, give me blood, bitch.
It sounds like me, like depressing and brooding, and
give me that
Yeah,
Game of Thrones
yeah.
stuff, you know what I'm
He's like,
saying?
I
What
want anger, I want violence, I want. No,
well,
I
that's
mean,
I,
why our
I,
favorite
I
Star
want
Wars movie
I
is
want
Revenge of
somebody to
the
break a
Sith.
broomstick in front of me.
Well, it's just that's why when it comes to Star Wars, our favorite film is Revenge of the Sith and Rogue One. When you really think about it, because
Yeah.
they always end in dark moments of the film, it does not end
right.
with big moments. Like it's like, but that's why I said like even you bring up a good point too, because I forgot about that scene to really bring up is when she loses that ability to talk to Gigi. And
Yeah.
that's really kind of one of like the first signs you really see that her powers are going away. And but I also have heard that Miyazaki did that purpose because it was a sense of like she's now growing up. Like Gigi was a representation of like her insecurities and her still youthfulness. That when she actually finally grows up and gets her powers back and stuff, that's why he doesn't talk at the end again.
He
When
doesn't
she,
talk at all after that.
yeah,
No, he doesn't. And that's the kind of cool thing because it kind of cuts off, it almost cuts off like who she was at adolescence to who she is now. She has moved on. She is now matured enough, right? I
that's
think it's a beautiful way of telling it.
and I think and that was the only really like big representation that it's kind of like how we talked about Spirit Away, where you have all these characters surrounding Chihiro, and they are different ways that she could look at life or how
Yeah.
she could take her life. This was or not take her life, but like
Yeah,
put
yeah,
herself into that situation. But they had that moment where she loses that. That was really a big representation of that. Like it's a sense of it's finding one's self confidence as well as another big.
You know,
And
when I watched it, I thought it was like the Spider-Man thing where, you know, like how he lost his power for a little bit, you know? I thought it was like that.
yeah, at least
Just
she didn't
saying.
fall on his back on her back like he did. Like oh my back, oh my back.
You know, he hurt his back for real. That's why
Yeah, I
he,
know he
yeah.
did. I remember that. Like,
Yeah. And then they brought it back, you know. Oh,
yeah,
my back.
that's why I said this. That's why I said like Pat. What were things that you enjoyed about the film?
Well, like I was alluding to earlier, that I love that intro. I love that intro. The just with her flying through, especially that how it's at night. I love how that kind of sets the tone. It's kind of like how she runs into that other witch and the witch helps her out a little bit. And at first you think that she's kind of being snooty, but then she, is all cool with everything, goes to her town and they split off from there. And I think that's when the credits start rolling and everything. You kind of brought it up too earlier, Brandon. I really do like that bakery scene. I always tend to get hungry whenever I see even though how could I get so hungry over bread that's not even real? Um, but that was one thing as a kid, or I was like, I always loved it because I'm just a foodie and I love eating food. Who doesn't love eating food, honestly? But
I can name a
especially
few people.
We needed to live.
we do need it to live, but sometimes we indulge ourselves. Um, the the ending scene's cool with the whole blimp. I don't know. It was, as far as like an animation goes, I like how the sequence of all that stuff is. I also like when she goes into the forests. All those shots. Ah, man, I don't have the character in front of me. Gosh darn it. Um,
I know who you're talking about. You're talking about
Yeah,
the painter.
yeah.
what's that?
The
You're talking
painter.
about the painter.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it goes in and then with the how like I don't know, it's just I think that's when she starts to find herself a little bit, almost like it transforms her a little bit.
Right.
It's a
Ursula.
pivotal part, huh?
Ursula.
Ursula, yeah. Come here, Ursula. Ursula, come here, Ursula. Um,
Unfortunate souls.
I don't know what you're referencing. What?
you're a movie fan and you don't know what that movie's from?
Wait, say it one more time.
Poor Unfortunate Souls. It's a Disney movie, and if you say it
Oh,
out loud, people are going to give you crap for that.
what's
It's the
text
Little
me?
Mermaid.
Oh, come on now. You
No,
don't.
no, don't come on now, me. That's like the
I'm
biggest.
coming on everything. All right. So
Her name is Ursula. What other Disney movie?
Yeah.
no, I was actually. Oh yeah, duh.
Yeah, see.
I'm referencing. I was referencing Super Troopers because the girl, the police lady in that movie is her name's Ursula.
Okay, that's
Broken
fair.
Lizard fans, if you're listening, you get it. So don't listen to these two chumps with your under the sea, under the sea.
I
Yeah,
think there's actually one that's still iconic and one that's just considered a cult classic.
what?
I think we're not that far off. Anyway, because Pat doesn't know pop culture very well when it comes
I
to
guess I don't. I only know popcorn. Popcorn's good.
even Ty's doing the shame, and I will keep that in the podcast now.
It'll make me get my broomstick.
That's worse than dopey, dude. Like,
Well, I can't even name off the seven doors.
no, you can't. That's worse, but
We got sleazy. We got
fuckface. We
yeah. We got fuckface.
We got a big nose, big
Stumpy.
ears, big
We got
eyes,
Stumpy.
big teeth.
We got lump. We got my oatmeal lumpy.
So stupid. Like,
I got my oatmeal lumpy.
going back to this conversation, like, I agree with you that bird scene, I don't even want to know how many pains they had to do for that episode.
Oh, I know.
That was for how much that was going on during that and how meticulous it would have to be.
You're talking about like the crows, right? All that. Well, and that's kind of
The branches that when she's
yeah.
trapped in there.
We know where all the budget went.
I feel like that's one of the few times in this movie you kind of see more grim colors, like
Yeah.
what we kind of talked about earlier. With this more being more of like the warm, generating fun movie, I think that's the time. But also, it's important, like I said, I think that's when her character starts to turn a little bit and change a little bit and find herself a little bit. So, but yeah, the sequence of like all the crows and stuff, I thought that was cool. I think she was, or even the geese, the Canadian geese that are up in where she's flying with the line of geese and the wind take her up. I think that was a pretty like, oh, they can sense that the wind is coming. I think Gigi refers that to her.
That's why I said, like, even I think, like I said, the more powerful scene to me was even after the rain starts falling on her when she's
Yeah, and there's that shot of her by herself and the rain's just coming down.
like I think that scene was very powerful because that was kind of the hint of a scene where you really start seeing not her losing her confidence, but it was kind of like the start of it all coming to the way it is.
Yeah.
Like, and seeing how people are with her and stuff too, kind of settled in with it a little bit more.
Mhm.
Like, I agree with Ty. Like, I like the scene where it's the bike scene when they're driving on that little freeway there. It's like, hey, turn left, and how close she gets to the road. I'm just sitting there like,
Yeah.
but having that moment where you have that, there was nothing bad about this film, but it's like Ty also said too. It's like you can tell what movie this was made for or who this movie was made for. It wasn't. It's more family wholesome. It's more things like that. Give me grim and give me darkness. Like
Yeah.
brooding.
Brandon. That's Brandon for you. Yeah.
My favorite character, one of my favorite characters is Batman, buddy. So
Yeah.
like,
You were nicknamed Batman for like a couple years.
Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a very long time. But that's why I said it. Like,
That was in the past. My dark past.
I'm just called Bruce now. But that's the whole thing. Like, when you really think about the story, it's more wholesome. It's more wholeheartedly. And that was Studio Ghibli. Like, and we've talked about it before, like, even before Studio Ghibli was known for that, they did Grave of the Fireflies, which is by far I will even put it out there. Would I put it on the same? I would put something like Grave of the Fireflies at points in the film. Something like, and let me reference why I say this. Kind of like put it on the same level as like how I view Schindler's List. It's a movie that everybody I feel should watch once in their life.
Yes.
But it is a movie that you sit there and rewatch. It's very dark and very, like, even for me, that is a very dark film. And for
Yeah.
me to really set that in, it's like first 15 minutes of Grave of the Fireflies is by far one of the most depressing things you will ever see.
I don't think it's a movie you're gonna watch for fun.
You know the poster, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know that's not really fireflies.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
never.
think I told you. I sent you the picture.
Yeah,
So
you told.
I don't know if Pat knows. So they recently found out that if you brighten up the poster, you actually see like the airship dropping bombs.
But that's why I said, like, just the, like, to see that, and then they go to something like My Neighbor Totoro and do some of the wholesome films they do. It's like okay, that's, if that's what floats your boat a little bit, go right ahead. And then you go dark again with Mononoke,
Yeah.
and then you go dark again with Spirit Away. And those two films were, what was it we talked about in the last episode, or in Spirit Away? These were two of the only films from Studio Ghibli that won a big award in Japan for best animated feature kind of thing, and then Spirit Away won best animated feature at the Oscars. So that's what I said. It's good for that. Like, would I put Kiki up in that conversation? Like, if this movie, mind you, when it first came out, it came out with the likes of Akira. There's a couple big Disney movies that year. I don't think it would have won Best Picture if that was or Best Animated Feature if that award existed at that time. I don't even think Akira would, and it's sad because I think Akira's deserving of it, but I don't think Akira would win either because of how gruesome and how dark that movie is. But that's why I said it's still a great film. Now, were there any other thoughts or anything you wanted to?
Yes, I like how they gave Gigi a happy ending with a family.
Whoa there.
Dude, that final scene, the credit scene when you see him with the messed up whisker, it's like you can tell he
He got a family, so
became a Patrick.
I'm
You know,
glad he ended that sentence with the family. That's all I gotta say.
and I agree with you there. Like having those moments, like, like how he was like, "Well, poor me, snooty pants," and then all of a sudden now he's liking him. It's
Yeah.
like, and I don't think you would have gotten that famous lines from somebody like other than Phil Hartman. Like Phil Hartman was known for those lines. Like how he even was in the store. Hey Kiki, look, it's me, and all of a sudden you see her buy the coffee cup that has the cat. So let's go into our rankings of the film. Ty, where would you rank it on a scale of 1 to 10 witches?
me
Or okay,
first.
let me rephrase it. How would you rank it on a scale of 1 to 10 broomsticks?
Uh,
You're fucking terrible.
6.7 broomstick.
All right. So 6.7. Okay. Pat, where are you ranking on a scale of 1 to 10 broomsticks?
I'm gonna go ahead and say 7.1 broomsticks.
Oh,
I think it's going to be the
It's
first.
hitting a seven. It's hitting a seven for me just because this is the movie that introduced me to anime. It really is. Like the that's the first memory. Like whenever anyone would ever bring up to me like, "Oh, you watch anime?" I'm like, "What's that one movie I was a kid. I really liked it. It was like this girl with her cat and a broomstick." Uh,
Sabrina?
Sabrina.
Who
I
the fuck said that? That was good. Was that Ty?
that was
That was good. That was good.
for me, and this is probably going to be one of the lower rankings. And again, I think it's ranking because this movie just was not made for adults like us now. I think,
Yeah.
and I agree with you, Pat. Like, I think for you, you are a dad, you are all that. So now you're having those moments with your own kids and watching movies like this. So it might rank up higher for you. For somebody like Ty and I, we don't have that yet. So it's kind of like, it's hard for me to determine, like, not meaning in that way. What I mean is just like, we're not parents, we're not experiencing that with kids. I probably would rank this at a 6.2. I think this is the lowest ranking I've given on a podcast. It's not a movie for me. but I still don't want to give it a 5 because it wasn't bad. It just was not a movie made for me. And I understand. But as always, good fans, we couldn't come to this movie without a little bit of trivia questions for our two. So I got 5 questions for you guys.
This guy and his trivia, huh? I can't wait until you have a wife and then your like
Trivia.
your vows gonna be like, I got a trivia for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Just you watch. What is my favorite color?
How many strands of burlap were on the broomstick?
Oh, what comic did I introduce you on our first date?
I got 5 questions for these gentlemen from this movie. And we're going to go ahead and ask this, okay? How long must Kiki train for after she leaves home?
Oh, I got it.
Okay, Ty? Okay, what's your answer, Ty?
Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
I was gonna say a year.
Okay, what about you, Ty?
Couple months.
Pat's got a point. It is a year.
Go!
Yeah, a couple
That's
months
Go!
would be like, you know, it could be 1 to 12 months, you know?
Yeah.
Couple months.
12 months. I meant 1-2 months. Meaning 12.
See, the way my vocabulary worked, right?
Oh, wow. It's like several in Survivor. They said, oh, yeah, several. And it's like 15 people. It's like, that's not several. Several is like 3 to 7 people.
Sorry.
Not several is 15.
I hang out with the British.
All right, here's your next one. How does Kiki learn that her powers are going away? What's the first sign?
Our cat don't talk back.
Patrick?
I was gonna say the same thing. Gigi just stops talking to her, or
Yeah.
doesn't have a voice anymore.
Yes. All right, here is your third question.
Bread.
I hate you. What color was the bow Kiki always wore on her head?
Oh,
You
red.
just said it. Ty just said it right
No, but I knew that. Like,
Ty, I hate you.
wait, did he say bread? I thought
No,
he said red.
red. He said red.
You didn't even know the question before you asked it. He just said the answer.
He just said the answer.
Is this a conspiracy? Did you guys fucking talk about this before I came on air?
Bum bum.
Man, that's a fucking whatever.
Wow.
Does he get the point for this? He gets the point. I'll give him the point. Make the conspiracy.
I get a double point because I guessed it.
No.
Yeah, you know that's actually impressive. No, because this is a conspiracy. He did not.
Bum bum. No, we didn't.
I can smell the color coming from him.
All right, here's your next question. Ty, you want to take a shot?
Nah.
Okay.
Eyes of blood.
Glasses.
What is the name of the blimp that can be seen near the end of the movie?
Goodyear.
Shut the fuck up. What about you, Ty? What's your answer?
See, World War II, blimp. I don't know.
But that's not the answer. It is the Spirit of Freedom.
I was way off.
So we got it, right?
No.
You mean they weren't sponsoring a tire company?
Oh. Here's your last question.
American Tires.
And there's 3 answers I'm looking for here.
Oh shit. Hold on. Let me mentally prepare myself.
You want to take a shot in the dark?
No, because I probably can't see.
Cat, bike, and a grandma.
No.
Okay.
What are the 3 things Osano promises Kiki if Kiki would man the store every so often? What are the 3 things Osano promises Kiki?
A room, bread, love.
You got one of them right.
Yeah, love conquers
No.
everything. I know it's the room. I know it's the room.
Okay.
I'm trying to think because I remember, I know exactly what part it is.
She promises her 3 things. If Kiki mans the store, she would be able to hold these 3 things.
What does Osano?
You just need to name 2. I gave you 1.
You gave me what, bread?
No.
The room.
That's the room.
Okay. Money.
No.
Nah, she get the room for free. She works for
So,
free for the room.
so here's your three answers.
She's a
The
bread
first,
slave.
the phone,
The
The phone.
phone.
and free breakfast every morning.
Oh, hell
That's
yeah.
the bread. That's the bread.
No, I don't count that. She said something in particular. It doesn't.
That's still food.
No, breakfast can mean toast. I'm on Ty's side with this.
Exactly.
Okay. Why did she give her hot chocolate at one point? Why did she do all this? And she even
Courtesy.
says pancakes. That's
Well,
not
Courtesy.
first off, hot chocolate's a refreshment. So
okay.
Yeah.
Pancakes is not a refreshment, and that's not them you make in a
Well,
bakery.
technically, you can if you change the recipe a little bit for the bread, you can make pancakes.
Shut up. Don't come at me. I'm not counting bread. She said
I'm
it.
pretty sure you have bread.
Ate it.
You ever had toast for breakfast?
Sometimes.
What's made of
I'm
toast?
not counting that though, dude. She said it in particular. What?
Rest my case, Your Honor.
You like French? What
Okay.
about French
Okay.
toast?
What else is bread used for? Sandwich.
Croutons.
Sandwiches.
Don't forget the sandwiches.
Croutons.
Croutons. Okay. You
Crouton.
eat that in the morning.
You never have a nice salad?
Yeah.
You don't eat salad in the morning.
You could.
You ever had a baguette? You know, it's like, oh, I want a 6, 7 foot long baguette for
I bet you
breakfast.
do.
I think it was a great way to end out the podcast. Again, thank you, Ty, for coming on with us and talking all things Kiki's delivery service. You can always check Ty and I out on our Comic Talker podcast where we talk all things anime and comics. And then you can also check us out at J4F Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. You can also check us out and listen to other great movie content on Spotify and YouTube. Remember, if you like this content, you want more of it, hit that like button. In the comments, let us know what movies you would like us to cover. Remember to hit the bell notification and subscribe to the channel. And without further ado, I turn this over to Patty B to take us out.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys for everything. Thank you, Ty, as always. It's always a pleasure having you on here. And remember, we do it just for flicks.